Hello, greetings from another warm, beautiful day here in the UK. Stood to you talking with my down jacket on. Right, this review is a long time coming, but that's no bad thing. At first, well, we had a couple of lukewarm sessions, if I'm honest, and I'm glad that we waited, as it's given us a perspective on this new wing that we wouldn't have had otherwise. The punchline is that they're very different to any of the Freewings that we've had so far, so it's understandable that some eyebrows were raised. Now, I'll try and keep this as brief as I can, but there's a lot going on. So let's get set up and we'll have a walk through. Righty-ho, so the Freewing Air's got quite the legacy. It was one of the first generation of wings back at the start of the sport, and indeed the first wing I ever used. But what was once a standalone wing, designed and, to be fair, praised for doing everything, has now morphed into a number of different wings within this new Freewing family that it's spawned. A year ago, the Go arrived, and then came the high-end Nitro, then the Pro a few months later, and all these new wings brought a specialism that nibbled away at the Air. So when a new version of the Air came to be, well, the landscape looked very different indeed. Now, if the Go has the low speed power, the ease and grunt, and the Pro has the high power, high stability thing sorted, and the Nitro is king of wave and freestyle, then what's missing? Where does this V3 Air go? Well, there is a missing piece of the Freewing jigsaw, and this is indeed it. Now, as I already mentioned, this vid is late, and that's given us the chance to use the 4, 5 and 6 a lot, as well as having it tested with a real variety of people. So we're really very, very confident that we know these things inside and out now. So let's start with the physical stuff. Primarily, this is a Dacron leading edge, not Hookkeeper like the Pro and the Nitro, Dacron like the V2 before it, but this one has a few tricks up its sleeve. And that makes it a lot more relevant in this new version. For one, Dacron keeps the price down. Remember, performance wings at sensible money make up the core of the market, and rightly so. And secondly, the last few years have taught the designers a lot about seam construction, so they've managed to get far higher stable operating pressure in the leading edge, and that is really important. It allows them to get a smaller leading edge, and that gains efficiency while, of course, maintaining that all-important leading edge stiffness. That stiffness is critical to the way these things work. You'll also see a great deal of shaping in the center strut. Now, this brings a much more natural stance. You also have these new handles. Now, there are inserts in the center strut here, and that allows you to either use the supplied semi-rigid handles, or you can get the solid carbon handles as extras, and these can be swapped over really simply with the 4 screws there on the middle strut. Lastly, and most dramatically, if you have an eye for these things, you'll notice the canopy. Yep, it's the normal high-spec Tasian material with the new high-tech windows, but just look how tight it is. This thing is like a drum skin. It's the tightest canopy I've ever seen, and that is unusual. Certainly it's unusual in Freewings. And the other thing that I've heard, and the designers are probably going to curse me for saying this, is that wings are actually a little bit smaller than they say. Is this unusual? Actually in Freewing, yes, but in the industry at large, well, no. In fact, most manufacturers are making wings that are 5 to 10% smaller in real life, and that's not new. The kite brands have been fudging their sizes for years. Why? Well, you only have to listen to tales on the beach. Oh, you know, my 5 meter takes 10 knots more than any other 5 meter. It's just so efficient, it's so light, I can hang on to the thing forever. Well, yup, because to be fair, at the heart of that truth is the fact that most people's wings are not the size that's actually printed on them. Now it sounds a bit weird, but this is where a chunk of the industry is, so this is where the V3's gone. The fact is, to a rider using non-Freewings, an existing Freewing will feel very powerful indeed. Now, physical stuff aside, let's talk about what it's actually like to ride on the water. And to that end, your opinion of what it's like is obviously going to be shaped by what you use right now and, to be fair, how you use it. And that's what happened to us until we really got to know it. If you lean on the grunt from the existing Freewing, you'll notice it has a lot less static power. So much so, you'll probably think it's more than half a metre smaller. But there is a solution: pump it. It actually pumps really, really well, but only if you max the pressure. In truth, we underinflated it a few times, and when we figured out that you can't pump it until you've hit the maximum inflation pressure, well, that was a bit of a light bulb moment for us. Now, when you are up and riding, you'll notice there's a great deal more efficiency. In fact, a massive increase of efficiency over the V2. That said, you're only going to be able to tap into this with a foil that shares the same speed and efficiency characteristics. If you plug it into a big, chunky beginner front wing, well, you'll be straining at the leash. There's not much grunt to get it going and no speed from the foil to get the wing up to the speed at which it starts to sing. By contrast, plug it into a higher aspect foil like an AK Plasma or something like that, the V3 really starts to breathe. You get the speed it's capable of, a higher apparent wind, and your range just opens up. And then you'll notice the party piece of this wing. And it's something pretty unique, to be fair. That super taut canopy and that smaller LE means that it has far less static drag when flagged than anything else I've used. When I first came barreling into an unpowered transition, I think it was a heel side tack, it was the second time that the light bulb went on. In medium power winds, when the wing's right in its sweet spot, it is radical just how much extra unpowered glide you have access to. You're talking about twice the glide over the V2 or any other Freewing, to be fair. Plus, the efficiency of the wave riding flag out in medium winds, it's substantial. The glide is really very impressive. You suddenly realise just how much of an anchor a flapping canopy is, and this is a big eye-opener for this new V3. Okay, on to more normal stuff. The stance. Well, the stance is really lovely and comfortable. And that center strut modification, it is noticeable. It's not radical, but it looks really cool. And it's the kind of, it's the kind of refinement you'd expect from a wing of this development curve. The aspect ratio is pretty much spot on. Plenty of efficiency there, and no annoying tip strikes. And when you pair the V3 with the right wind and the right front wing, there is a tactile appreciation of how big the range can actually be. But if you get this wrong, you do appreciate how your own bad choices, or perhaps the crazy gusty winds of the day, can scupper things. In that way, to the more technical rider, it's a very involving and a very immersive bit of kit. But that is its one caveat, and this is very true of a lot of other brands that use this philosophy of wing design. If you go after efficiency, handling and performance using a Dacron LE, it is totally doable, but there is a price to pay, and that is you have to get your ducks in a row if you want your session to shine. Now, like many of you, I'm sure, I've ridden more than a few wings, and looking around the industry, you can see how opinions have split. There are definitely different philosophies. If you compare a wing that had the biggest possible operational wind range, and in this I have found nothing more impressive than the 4-meter Nitro, and you compare that to a wing that has the most efficiency and glide, of which, to be fair, this V3 is a prime example, you'll find that you'll need to get the sizing right. and well, you'd have to use it in steadier conditions too. In truth, it takes more sizes and a bit more technique to get these things singing. Yes, in their range, they are fantastic, superior even, but you'll have to get the size right. The other thing to consider is that a lot of us have taken winging to places where no other wind sports work, either inland or offshore, where winds can be, well, to put it kindly, extremely chaotic. And this does lean heavily on the range of the wing more than any other aspect. And as such, the V3 does prefer a steadier, more idyllic environment to shine. It's the same with all wings of this ilk, and riders of this style of wing would scoff and wonder why anyone would ever ride in such a horrible place to start with. But for some of us, well, this is our spot and this is where we choose to ride. So if you come from these locations, or you come from the Freewing Go or the Air V2, and you lean on that enormous range as a fundamental principle of your riding, then you'll probably find yourself trading up to what will essentially be a plug-and-play upgrade in either the Nitro or the Pro. The Air V3 will feel very different, and until you figure this out, you're going to be scratching your head a little. It is less of a plug-and-play wing when you compare it to the last two versions, but, and here is the interesting bit, if you listen to what the experienced riders champion in their favourite wings, well, that's where the V3 lies, at the performance end of that wish list. It's efficient, refined, tactile, with superb handling in its range, and it isn't crazy expensive. Ultimately, this is the gap that was missing in the Freewing range as is. It takes a shot right at the heart of this range versus efficiency debate. And I guess for you to figure out where you stand depends on where you are right now and where you see yourself in the future. For sure, if you're a rider that has grown up favouring the efficiency and technique side of this debate, then the Air V3 pushes that window as far, if not further, than anything else in the industry so far, and it's going to resonate really well with you. And if you're coming from a beginner wing and your conditions allow, then you may well choose to take this path forwards instead of the Pro or the Nitro. So there you have it. As always, thank you very much for watching. I hope you found some answers in here, and of course, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below and we will do our best to answer.